Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdogs Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini episode, today I have a couple of very bizarre stories to tell you all today, folks. As usual, they're phenomenal and very, very intriguing. The first article is about this man, the stranger who knew everything this woman was talking to, and another involving this spooky, fast, black-eyed alien. Let's get into the first article, the stranger who knew everything, and hear exactly what this woman met and how it affected her. One summer night, a heartbroken young woman met a mysterious man in a bar who seemed to know everyone's name, histories, and even obscure literary references. Though his claims felt harmless, her mother's warning led her to leave, and when she returned, he had vanished, never to be seen again. Was he a spirit, a trickster, or something else entirely? Very interesting, folks. We'll discuss this after we read the article, exactly what this being was. But let's hear the full account now, as usually I just say, folks? He knew everything. First, I want to apologize for my English, as it isn't my first language. I want to share a story that happened a few years ago. It was summer, and on that night, my heart was broken by my first love, who told me he would never feel the same way about me because I was too much for him due to my traumatic experiences in the past. I was devastated, and afterward I went to a bar that used to be a gathering place for artists. I wasn't crying, but a man in a suit stopped me and asked where I was going and encouraged me to sit with him for a moment. We talked, and being a huge literature fan, I often made references to books. He knew each of them and began to tell me about the people around us. He knew their names and their family stories. Once I mentioned a writer's surname, and he casually said he had drunk with him, although he looked too young to have done so. Then my phone rang, and it was my mom telling me I should leave that place because she had heard the man's laugh through the phone and found it concerning for me. However, it wasn't disturbing at all. I followed her advice and left. Later, I returned and asked strangers about their names. He was right about everything he had said. He never showed up at the bar again, and the people I asked about him didn't know him at all. I still think about who or what he was. What do you think he might have been? Well, IL. IL here could have meant maybe, a demon perhaps, folks, or maybe indeed some sort of trickster, literally the kind of trickster we see from mythology, like Loki or, Coyote, or even the Crow folks, because they are known as Native American tricksters as well. So what was this entity, folks? Some benign being or something worse? Either way, folks, we can only, as I said so many times before, we can only theorize about that. But let's move on to the next article. Spooky, fast, black-eyed alien-like humanoid encountered in Oregon backyard. Hear about this, being that apparently was spooky, but also apparently incredibly fast. Let's hear about this alien incident and what this witness experienced. During a late-night cake party in suburban Oregon, a witness caught a fleeting glimpse of a strange being, lanky, fast, and eerily alien. 7 feet tall, with black eyes and moving with unnatural speed. The creature seemed as startled as the observer before vanishing in a blur, leaving behind more questions than answers. That is a interesting subject, isn't it, folks? What this witness saw. It sets up the story nicely, but let's get into the full account now. Sounds like something I would say. Maybe it was me. A long time ago, my buddy was turning 21 and invited everyone over for a wild kegger. It was late, but I was one of the first to show up. The keg was in the backyard and I tried to drink, but it was the most god-awful 3% raspberry beer I'd ever had. I went out a couple more times to smoke a cigarette alone. I turned on the back porch light and stepped through the sliding glass door. Similar to your experience, I saw a shadow move out of the corner of my eye and turned to look up. Now, I'm a video gamer with a perfect computer capable of distinguishing between 80 frames per second and 120 frames per second. So I'll explain what I saw in those terms. The figure was moving so fast that it was blurring worse than a UE5 game with temporal anti-aliasing, but when its front arms went behind its back legs before literally disappearing in an instant jump, it managed to remain clear enough for about 3 frames. It looked like a lanky, gray alien with a smaller head than I would expect, more like the tall, long-armed alien from Close Encounters. It seemed scared or startled. I would describe myself as extremely startled, but not scared. There was some comfort in its fear, maybe. Well, I can understand that, folks, why you'd basically be less scared of an entity that was maybe visibly scared of you as well, folks, because maybe, at the very least, neither of you would want to basically get into any kind of, conflict basically from the fact that you saw it. So at the very least, it sounds like this entity didn't want to basically have anything to do with you. So I imagine, yeah, you would basically be less frightened of this entity if it was basically just scared of you instead of it just running at you, screaming like a bloody monster and then trying to kill you. So that tracks. But let's continue with this witness's story. I considered that I could take it in a fight, assuming I could get its little nick in a headlock before getting kicked across the yard. I stayed outside in the backyard for a long time that night, and more people showed up. I told them I thought I saw an alien in the backyard, but there was hardly any response. We were standing outside by the slain door near the keg, talking, when another friend arriving by jumping the fence on the side of the house just before he landed on the ground. I jumped about 4 feet in the air, mimicking Bruce Lee's cry, because before I could land, the alien would have closed the distance and been on me. So I can imagine this guy was still, basically on some level, very frightened, even though he said that he wasn't really fearful. From the fact that basically when his friend jumped the fence and startled him, I would say that indeed this man had been, well, scared out of his wits. I mean, he was basically not willing to admit it here, folks, because if indeed he did basically jump, that means that he was already wary of something going on in the woods back behind his friend's house here, isn't it? But now, folks, let's finish up this article and then we can discuss the 2 stories we read about today. I think my reaction to my friend jumping the fence got more of a response from my friends than if I had told them I saw an alien. This incident occurred in a suburb of Oregon, no mouth, black eyes, about 7 feet tall, on all 4s, spooky fast, no noise. I caught a glimpse of one for just a split second as its tiny head whipped back like a silly dog with zoomies, its legs in front of its arms as it took off, and I mean, it was gone like a flea jumping in. Okay, folks, the fact that this, well, being was on all 4s and that it had big black eyes makes me think that indeed this man didn't see a great alien, but perhaps a pale crawler. But then again, folks, in a lot of pale crawler accounts, they're mentioned as looking alien-like, but usually, well, they are mostly mentioned as basically, well, not having faces, or at the very least, people don't really describe or can describe the faces of pale crawlers. Here, though, this guy describes this being as having basically an alien-like head with the big black eyes, but, well, also, remember, as I said, in a lot of accounts of pale crawlers, they didn't have features. It didn't have a visible mouth. So maybe this entity, whatever it was wearing some sort of mask with big black, almost Spider-Man-like eyes, I suppose. But clearly the fact that this man did not see a mouth on it makes me think indeed that this was some sort of full face covering. But then again, I can't be for sure, folks. What was this entity? Was it a pale crawler? Or was it perhaps just a gray alien? Because they have been described as basically being 7 feet tall at times with the tall grays. But then again, I keep saying that word, folks. We just don't know or basically have any idea what these entities are. And what about that man, that woman encountered in the first account that just seemingly knew everything? What was he? If anything, folks, both accounts describe entirely, well, irrational and unimaginable entities. Both very frightening in their own way. This man, who knew everything, gives you the idea that maybe he was some sort of demon in disguise or a trickster spirit, like, say, Coyote from Native American lore, or even Loki from Norse mythology. And this entity that was seen in the woods, moving so fast and spookily on all 4s, brings to mind such various accounts like the Dover Demon or pale crawlers, or people encountering alien beings like the Greys out in the woods. All I can say, folks, indeed, if these stories are true, it basically paints this world that we live in a truly out-of-the-way nature, that these things do exist, and that's something I do believe, folks, and that people do encounter these things all the time. Sadly, folks, most people just basically disregard these stories or hide them because they don't want to be called cranks or crazy. But now, folks, that isn't really the truth anymore. Nowadays, people talking about such crazy things online is more acceptable, and we can hear about these stories, and it gives us an idea that, indeed, these things are real. But what about these entities, folks? Were they spirits? Or were they aliens? We don't know. Either way, we're at the end. So please go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics They're Bad For You. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions or the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to hit the part of the bell that give you all future notifications. And please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video. So be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks. I'll see you all again soon.